Hi, welcome back to my channel. So today we're going to be doing the opposite of a video I did a couple weeks back. This is going to be 5-star reviews of books I gave 1 star. Let's just jump right into it. So I have the reviews over here. So if you see me looking over here, I'm reading the reviews, and I'll read them first, give my commentary on them after. So let's go with this first one, which is for the Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires by Grady Hendrix. This book is a horror thriller book. I really loved parts of this book, and some parts, like the rats part, had me wanting to run far, far away from the book. Overall, this is a great book, and it was scary at times. Also, I have not read another vampire book like this one, but I have not read a vampire book since the 90s. When I think of vampires, they have weird teeth and biting necks, and that does not happen in this book. I have to say that this is a totally different take on vampires, and the characters brings this book to life. I have to say I wanted to kill the husbands of these women, but that is part of the story. Okay, so I'm going to break this down a little bit here. So, a horror thriller book, it is. I really liked parts of this book, and some parts, like the rats part, had me wanting to run away. So, the part with the rats was not really, overtly scary unless you're afraid of rats, which I know people are, but overall it wasn't really that horrifying of a part in the story. And then as they go into talking about vampires, they mention how there's weird teeth and biting necks, and how they think this book is a completely different take on vampires. It's not. There is nothing inherently super unique about this take on vampires. It's pretty ordinary, honestly. It's not like a crazy take on vampires. There is biting. It's not in the neck, and there is weird teeth. It's just not like the 2 fangs like we're used to. So it's not all that different. It's still vampire in the same way. It's blood and energy, and most vampires, even from the 90s, were blood and energy as well. So it's not like a crazy different take. And wanting to kill the husbands, being part of the story. So there is something that I think is different between writing a character that we're meant to hate and writing a character that we hate. You know what I mean? The husbands, we are meant to hate. So them being written the way they are is correct. But I hated more than just the husbands. I hated the female characters as well as the vampire, even when we weren't supposed to be hating him. We were supposed to be kind of more on his side at some point in the story. But most importantly, I hated the author for writing the book in this very specific way as to make it extremely misogynistic, not just from the points of the husbands, but from the women's inner monologue as well. And just the framing of the story itself was very misogynistic and sexist, which isn't, and it wasn't a character trait that was misogynistic and sexist, which there were, but it was the overall overarching story that was sexist and misogynistic. It didn't just stop at the characters, it was just fluid throughout the entire story, up to plot points and things that happened to the women throughout the story. You could very much tell that this was written by a man. But that's just my personal opinion. Next review, also for the Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires, we have this one. This book is everything, in all caps. When I read in the introduction that Grady Hendrix basically wanted to write a book that pit Dracula against his mom. Well, let's just say he got my attention. I mean, who can resist a premise like that? This book did not disappoint. I adored Patricia Campbell. She is a kind, caring, loving, vampire ass kicking mom that I would love to have a glass of wine with. I loved the entire book club, and I loved how chapters were titled on whichever book club selection they were reading. In fact, I loved everything about this. Everything. I had so much fun reading this book. It was the perfect escape. It brought a smile to my face. What more can I ask for? 5 fantastic stars. Okay. So, going part by part, Dracula against his mom. Absolutely nothing like what this is. So Grady saying that was the idea he had in the first part of what he wanted the book to be doesn't make any sense, because that's not even close to what this book actually is. Unless Dracula is having relationships with his mother. But, he might like relations with his mother, which, Dracula might, but as far as I know, he didn't. And Patricia wasn't a motherly figure to the Dracula type character either, so that doesn't make sense. Patricia Campbell being kind, caring, loving, vampire ass kicking mom. Okay, so caring, kind, and loving, maybe. Meek and without a backbone to a certain point is kind of more how I'd feel about that. And vampire ass kicking mom, I don't see that in that character. I just don't. There's another character that I do, but this character, the main character of the book, spoilers for the end of the book, she doesn't do much at the end because she's kind of under his control. Which was part of her, not necessarily her plan, but the other girl's plan, and hers as well. Like, all of the girls came up with this plan and she volunteered as that position. But she wasn't ass-kicking in that moment because she couldn't do much. So calling her the ass-kicking one, but not mentioning the ones that actually got the job done, it seems unfair. But nonetheless, the vampire pun at the end is just the cherry on the cake. This just overall was not a good book, and this review is kind of misleading in a lot of the aspects of the actual story, because none of that is correct, because she has nothing to do with Dracula aside from meeting him once and then he moves in next door. He has no prior relationship with her until the start of this book. They didn't even know each other. So, that's a weird thing to start it off with. And calling her the ass-kicking mom doesn't really make sense because she didn't kick much ass. All she did was sneak into the guy's house, which honestly wasn't that hard, and she wasn't alone. She had 2 other women with her. But yeah, so next, another one for Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires. So, the Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires is everything authentically Southern that, bless its heart, Where the Crawdad Sings was not. Plus, it was fun, laugh out loud and slap your mama fun. Fun like The Help minus all the racism. Quote from the book: "He thinks we're what we look like on the outside, nice Southern ladies. Let me tell you something, there's nothing nice about Southern ladies. The Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires is not for everyone because it's gory and absurd and honestly a whole bushel of weird. But it's also so relatable. Whatever does that say about me?" I can't wait for my book club to read this. And then it just goes on about talking about the audiobook narrator, which I'm not going to talk about because I have no qualms with Bonnie Turpin. I think she's a great narrator. It's not her fault that she read a shit-ass book. So, let's break this down a bit. Authentically Southern. That where the crawdads sing was not. Where the Crawdads Sing is extremely problematic of a book, so comparing it to that already is a weird place to start. And bless its heart to Where the Crawdads Sings. I don't. Interesting. And being authentically Southern feels like an odd statement to me, but whatever. Plus it was fun, like laugh out loud, slap your mama fun. Fun like The Help minus all the racism. No. This book was racist. There was racism involved. So that like this had racism in it. No, it's not as extreme as in The Help, but it's still there, you know? And laugh out loud funny? Slap your mama fun? What does that even mean? The book wasn't even that funny. Like, there wasn't laugh out loud moments in this book. Sure, there might have been a couple pages that were a little humorous. Like, out of the entire book, maybe like 1 or 2 parts where I could have laughed if I maybe wanted to. But no. Overall, not a funny book. The quotes kind of just there. It's fine. It's, you know. And then it's not for everyone because it's gory and absurd. And honestly, a whole bushel of weird. Okay. This entire paragraph is what I saved this review for, because it being gory and absurd is an interesting take on the book. It's not heavily gory by any means. Gratuitous, yes. Gory, no. Absurd, not really. And weird, I don't see it as weird. Unless you're new to the horror genre, then sure, this would be weird. But overall, this is a pretty, in a wraparound way, pretty basic way of writing a horror novel. I've seen many other reviews saying that it was full of twists. There was not a single twist in this damn book. Nothing was twisty. It was all very, very, following a specific plot, and a specific narrative, to the T. Like, there was no real shock scares, wow, bazingas, bazongas. I don't know what I'm saying anymore. Gory, absolutely not. There was, I guess if you're afraid of rats, there was the rat scene. There was the scene with the child, the scene with the other child, but those are not gory. Those are disgusting. There's a difference between gore and stuff just being gross. Like, it wasn't bloody, it wasn't, like, slasher film kind of thing. It was more, you know, gross because of what was being done to the person that it was being done to. Which is completely different ballpark, and a much worse ballpark, if I'm gonna be honest. I would not play baseball in that ballpark. I would not play baseball, period. But, you know, like, I'm sorry, I'm kicking my legs and my chair's rocking and it's squeaking. This is just getting me, like, really upset because it wasn't gory. There was maybe the, and spoiler for the end of the book, but maybe the, taking him apart was supposed to be gory, but there wasn't grave detail about that, and he was talking through the whole thing and mocking them, so it couldn't have been all that gory. It wasn't like he was screaming and agony and all this stuff. No, he was laughing at them. So, you know, I just that middle paragraph, just, I guess second to last paragraph, just doesn't feel right. Next, this one is another one for Southern Book Club's Guide to Vampire, to the, yep. And this is the last one of that book, actually. Wow, this story was not what I expected. It was better. Girl power with a mission. Reasons why I enjoyed this story. Number 1, plot. A unique, almost plausible, spine-tingling story about ordinary housewives up against a charming smooth-talking vampire with a twist of dark humor that had me riveted from start to finish. I loved the bittersweet ending. 2, characters. What a cast! I especially loved Miss Green, and I would often catch myself mumbling bastard during the scenes with the husbands. Overall, some of the characters were relatable. Some raised my hackles? What? I don't know what that means. And some raised the hairs on the back of my neck. 3, details. Some of the horrific scenes were jaw-dropping graphic. Initially, I thought they were really bad dreams. They weren't. And 4, narrator. Bonnie Turpin, yeah, okay. I highly recommend this book for lovers of horror and or vampire stories. Okay, so we're gonna, once again, ignore number 4, which is Bonnie Turpin, because Bonnie Turpin is an incredible reader. But you can't judge a book because of the narrator. The book can be absolutely shit, dog water, but if the narrator's good, they're gonna give it props. I don't think that's right, because then you're ignoring the actual book and just listening to the person who's talking and not the words of the book, you know what I mean? So like Bonnie Turpin could take a terrible thing and make it good, but that doesn't mean that terrible thing is good outside of her, right? So we shouldn't be praising the book, we should be praising her. So it shouldn't be in your review for the book. So we'll go point by point. So plot. Unique plot. Disagree. Not super unique. Bittersweet ending. I guess. It wasn't like a fantastic ending, but it wasn't an open ending. It wasn't like an ending where there was like a big, oh, but this thing could be happening next. No, that didn't happen. With a dark humor, a twist of dark humor, meh. Smooth talking vampire, I guess. He was also just a cuck the whole time. Like, he just, even from the initial meeting, you knew he was gonna be a shit person before you even knew he was a vampire. He just felt like an incel. Like, he read like an incel. So, you know, I don't know, but smooth talking. Characters, what a cast. Miss Green was, in fact, the only character that I enjoyed in this. So that is correct. During the scenes with the husbands overall, some of the characters were relatable, some raised my hackles, whatever that means, and some raised the hairs on the back of my neck. There was only 2 that were, well, 1, but then 1 that was supposed to be like the villain of one story. So those 2, I guess, would raise the hairs on the back of your neck, but I don't know for sure. Overall, I didn't find it, like, creepy. I didn't find it hair-raising. Details. It wasn't graphic. In all honesty, nothing was overly explained to the aspect of it being graphic. Things were very quick to be over with. The horror scenes were very fast-paced. So, like, it would be scary for a matter of seconds. Because it would just be like, very quick, this is the briefest description I can give of this event, and then we move on. So, it was lacking detail, in honest opinion. like, it wasn't graphic at all by any means. It was definitely very broad explanations of what was happening. So, yeah. Next book, Asylum. Okay, we're starting with a weird review here. First, I want to say that I had heard a little bit about it from BookTube and Goodreads. Some was saying it was better than Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children. Okay, I wouldn't go that far and say that. Yes, I do own one of the Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children, but that's book 2, so I haven't read it yet as of yet because I need to read the first book. Others were saying it wasn't as good, but me, I'm glad that I picked it up. When I first saw it at Books A Million, it was the book cover that made me pick it. Then I read the back and I knew I had to get it to read. Once I started on November 21st, 2015, I was pulled into it and was hooked. Loved how it's dark as well as creepy, twisted, mysterious. It's brilliant. Another thing that got me hooked was the black and white photos that are custom illustrations as well as the featured pictures from actual asylums, and those real photos are kind of scary because between those photos and read in Asylum about how the doctors treated their patients, it made me start thinking that instead of helping them, it made things worse. It showed how they didn't care one way or another about them, that they didn't see them as people, but as things that didn't have rights. I also loved how it blurs the lines between the past, the present relationship, obsession, genius, as well as insanity, because as you're reading it, it kind of gets in your head and you start think that instead of things that are happening to Dan, that they're actually happening to you. At last, to me, it was like every time some happened to Dan, it was happening to me. Like I could feel, hear, and see everything he saw and felt if it was me. And that started to happen. I would leave the first night, no matter what. So if you love dark, creepy, and twisted stories that kind of play with your mind, then pick this up and see if it does the same thing to you. Holy crap. What in the world? That is... Was anything said in that review? I don't know. Oh my god. I have never once heard this book compared to Miss Peregrine's. And the fact that this person has the second book and only the second book in the Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children series, I think is hilarious. I don't understand. Oh my god. Like, I don't know how to critique this review because I don't know what's going on in it. Everything is just a jumbled mess of thoughts. I don't know if these are thoughts or if this was just somebody literally slamming their keyboard with their fist. I don't know what's happening. Oh god. I can't critique this review because it's too much. It's just way too much. I think this person is probably a child, and probably a very young child, who has excessive use of commas and doesn't know how to press a period. Run-on sentences galore. That was a time. Okay, now let's go to maybe more of a serious review of Asylum here. Dan Crawford goes to NHCP for a summer of studying. When he and his friends, Abby and Jordan, discover that their dormitory is the old Brooklyn insane asylum, and that Dan is related to the last warden there, crazy things begin to happen. Can they find out what it is before they go crazy themselves? Read on and find out. So that's like the description of the book, which, by the way, has a spoiler in it that we're not supposed to know for quite a while. But whatever. This book was creepy as all get out and scary. The book even features pictures from real insane asylums. Definitely check it out if you're a fan of horror stories. I saved this specifically for the book even features photos from real insane asylums. I don't know if you guys know this, but I despise mental illness as a plot in stories, especially horror stories, because it's never dealt with in a safe, caring, compassionate way. It is usually just used to villainize people, and this book very much did so. And the fact that it's showing real insane asylums, which are places that also villainized people who are mentally ill, and tortured them, and just, you shouldn't be using real life events, real life photos, real life people as scare tactics in your book, because those are real victims of real institutions that treated them completely unfairly. And using that as a scare tactic, I think, is pathetic. I really do. I think that is terrible. I know this book came out quite a while ago now, but not long enough ago for it to be okay to be using that stuff, and okay to make an entire book centered around mental illness, and not have any positive takes on it. It's garbage. This take is garbage. This book is garbage. Everything about it, surrounding it, and using it, I personally believe, is garbage. So, next. This is also for Asylum. Likes. I liked how it would tell you some things, but make you wait until the end of the chapter to find out the whole things out. It had a really great storyline. The way that each character tied into the past of the asylum. Dislikes. The beginning was a bit boring until the 3rd chapter. I didn't like how it waited to tell you a huge part of the story until the end. This book was a great book for me because it is one of my favorite genres to read. It kept me very entertained the whole time. The whole time I was reading it, and I never felt like I wanted to stop reading the book. This book is one of my favorite books I have ever read so far because of the way everything ties together in the end. It is definitely a spooky book to read, which is right up my alley. Once again, I believe this person might be younger, just based on their sentence formation, but we're not going to take that into consideration. We're going to sort of take it into consideration because, yes, this is a YA book, but just because something is YA doesn't mean that it's suitable for all ages. So we're going to kind of steer away from this being a child when I critique this review. So likes, very contradictory to what your dislike is. You liked when things were told to you, but when things were also held away from you until a later part in the story. But then your dislike is that you didn't like things being held away till the later part of the story. So that's a bit confusing. And slow start, which is fair. It did have a slow start, which, things gotta happen. You gotta build up character a little bit. But fair enough, I guess. And, this book being one of your favorites because you like the genre, I feel like you haven't read a lot of the genre yet in order for this to be your favorite. Hopefully, if this person is still reading, that they have continued into reading better horror and broadening their horizons into better representation in horror as well, because this is not a good place to be. This is not a good story to tell, and it's not a good place for someone who seems to be quite young, just by the way they're writing, that, like, this is not a good story for a younger reader, especially one that might, like, for all we know, this person might have a mental illness. Many people in the world have mental illnesses, and I don't think anyone who has a mental illness or illness at all, any disability, anything, should be reading this book, because I think it is very harmful. It's just a bad take. So next, and these are the last 3 reviews coming up here of our last book, Anatomy of a Misfit. Anatomy of a Misfit perfectly describes high school, the fine balance of trying to fit in without actually selling out. Boys, bitches, and breakups. This read as an American an American style Angus thongs in full frontal snogging, and the mind games of Mean Girls and the romance of Eleanor and Park, until it sucker punches you to the gut and leaves you heartbroken. Beautiful, honest, and devastating. You will both love and hate Andrea Ports for making you feel. Alright. So I picked this review because it very much shows you the time period that this came out in, where you're comparing it to Angus Thongs and Full Frontal Snogging, as well as Eleanor and Park. Nothing wrong with Angus Thongs and Full Frontal Snogging, but it was just very of the times, as well as Eleanor and Park, which, as we all know, has... Hello? Go away. Thank you. Has absolutely not aged well. Like, it has aged like, piss. It's terrible. Absolutely terrible and racist. Which, you know, comparing it to this book, it's very, very fair. Very accurate. And, like, having time away from this book when I initially read it, I have realized that this ending that people have praised so goddamn much ain't that serious. It ain't that good. It ain't everything it's chopped up to be. It was kind of there for just a way to end the story, I feel like. It's getting really dark. I'm sorry if you can tell. I don't want to open the window because there's been a lot of cars driving by lately, but maybe I might have to. I don't know. Maybe I can just, like, vibe here with this on my head. I don't know. We'll find out. Alright, so that's just how I feel about this review in particular. I just feel like it's very of the time. Next. So, I procrastinated this book for so long because it looked like it would be lame. But this was clearly a mistake. I obviously really liked it. First of all, there is Anika's narrative style. It was very creative and I liked her mindset. It was cool how she's the nice third most popular girl in school from the outside and so casually evil on the inside. For example, I think it was awesome how she treated her mean boss. Poor guy has no idea I'm stealing his profits and poisoning him. Additionally, I liked that no one seems to be normal in this town. Everyone is extreme in her direction of weirdness, niceness, evilness, creativeness. That was actually quite entertaining. The ending was very surprising, but at the same time, very well done. The aspect that was slightly annoying in this book were the, I blurted out, R-word conversations of most characters. Every time one of them opened his or her mouth, she sounded so excessively dumb. I guess that's just how teenagers talk, but still. Okay. I believe, of course, a person who casually uses the R word would find this book 5 stars. because holy crap, if this book wasn't the most offensive, horrible book I've ever read, I don't know what in the world is. And just casually using the R slur is on par with most of this book, I'd say. Because, oh yeah, it's used in the book as well. And I don't know if you guys know this, but I have autism. My sister has Down syndrome. That word has been used on both of us multiple times. And I think that that word is hello? Go away. I think that word is absolutely terrible and should never be used for anyone ever. And if you look into the history of the word, it's even worse to be published and for this person to just put it in a review as well. Absolutely terrible. And calling her Annika, I'm gonna call her Annika. I don't know if it's Annika or Anika. I don't care enough. I'm pretty sure I read it as Annika when I first read the book, but you know, whatever. Saying that she was nice, no. It was creative and I liked her mindset. Her mindset was absolutely abhorrent. So you're defending a homophobic, sexist, misogynistic, girl-hating, bigoted brat. You're saying that you like her mindset and that you relate to her? Well, pop off, I guess. I don't know. It's just like, oh my god. And like, from your first sentence, I knew this wasn't going to be a great review. I procrastinated this book for so long because it looked like it would be lame. Using lame as a term for any piece of art that makes you the lame person, I'm gonna be honest. But this book was not art. This book, that's how I feel about this book. I don't know. Book is garbage. Last review, because I am getting very, very drained emotionally right now. I don't remember the last time a book made me laugh out this loud. I laughed my way until the ending, and then the ending broke my heart. So beautiful, I cried. Once again, ending ain't that great. Hindsight, 2020, not great. But the humor in this book, like I said, is very punching down. And you finding it absolutely hilarious, I think says more about you than it does anything else. I don't want to meet you. I don't want to be friends with you. I hope your life is not fabulous and that you don't get all the cookies, because I think people that find this kind of humor funny are bad people and they don't deserve yummy, tasty cookies. And we're going to end it there because as you can tell, my mood has drastically dropped throughout this video. But thank you guys so much for watching, and I hope you have a fantastic day, and I hope to see you again soon. Bye-bye.